Boom. We're back. It's been forever, Zach. Do you remember how to podcast? Are we good at podcasting?
Hey, don't let people behind the scenes. It's been 3 days since our last podcast for everybody else.
Technically 4 days, but nice try.
What if you're like, we don't know what we're doing. It's been 4 days since we recorded something together.
To be fair, you can't really criticize me for bringing people behind the scenes. You constantly bring people behind the scenes after I tell you not to.
By forgetting what order of our movies.
We've definitely had several stretches in our past where you would reference a joke that had not been made on the show yet for 3 to 4 episodes in a row.
Well, I constantly want to compare things to a movie that's in 3 episodes.
It's fun. All right, we're here. We're talking the new movie releases. We're talking Malignant, the movie that the entire month of September was built around. James Wan's new feature, currently streaming.
I thought we were just talking about like the idea of things being malignant. I just did a lot of tumor research.
I actually know quite a lot about tumors. We're going to talk about P53 suppressor genes.
About what?
P53 suppressor genes. It's a really common tumor suppressor gene in the
body.
You
asked me, do I depress my genes?
Probably yes. We'll ask Theo later. Yeah, but we're here to talk about the new movie, which is currently streaming on HBO Max. Please pay us money, HBO Max. We love you very much. And also in theaters.
We've done a lot of HBO Max work. We love
HBO Max.
We love HBO Max. They have great catalogs. You can subscribe through your cell phone service, or you can subscribe to, call HBO, send them a letter and say, can you put me on the service? Thank you.
You have to send them a telegram.
Send them a telegram.
Give me HBO Max. Stop. We'll pay money. Stop. But we're here to talk about Malignant, which is the James Wan film. We're going to do we're going to do a tiny non-spoiler section first.
Okay.
Because it is almost impossible to talk about this movie, what happens in it, and our feelings about it without digging into this is a movie that you do not want to know anything about going in. If you have not watched the trailers yet, do not watch them. Just watch them.
Trailers give away nothing, though.
Yeah, but they don't. It gives away the movie. Like I'm glad I went to this movie knowing almost nothing about it.
I have lots of thoughts to say about the trailer. We'll get to that later.
Okay, I didn't even watch the trailer. I watched part of the trailer and then realized it wasn't a clearly defined horror genre and moved on. Yeah, I'm just gonna say this movie's really fun and kind of awesome and very weird and just go watch it, please. Yeah. If you like horror movies, if you like James Wan, you're gonna like this movie.
For me, it's a real mixed bag. And we'll get there. There's things I really hate and tune out on, but the things that I think the movie really cares about and James Wan cares about, I think are executed to perfection. I think there's just elements that, and I think you're a lot larger of a James Wan fan, and there's things that I feel he has not improved upon as a director that will always kind of take me out of moments of watching a movie.
Interesting. James Wan is the director of the world's best comic book movie, Aquaman.
There'll be some Aquaman comparisons when talking about what James Wan does. Shitty.
Yeah, Zach has a truly atrocious take on the film Aquaman. And just generally, your takes on DCU films are a bit iffy. So maybe we don't want to go back.
Aquaman rules, Aquaman rules. That's my take. That's all I got.
You like a movie that's boring and not very good, and you hate Aquaman, which is amazing. We're going to go to the spoiler section because we want to talk about this. So, if you're here still, you've already seen it, or you don't care. If you have not seen it, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you want to hear us talk about Malignant without seeing Malignant?
Because you're my mom, and you just wanted to hear me speak and see how adult I sound in her words, in her review of our show.
This was a review. I do appreciate that our review is adult. Adult. Not in the sexy way, just can form words.
Yes, that's honestly what you mean. It's you sound like you actually can speak the English language to some level of intelligence. I'm very impressed, Zach.
I want to put that should be on the poster. Can speak the English language with some level of intelligence. That's our movie.
The way he conforms into this make him seem like an adult.
Nice, I like it. So Malignant is the story. I'm going to try to explain the plot of this film. We are given an indication that there's some kind of facility where kids have weird abilities. We get a just absolutely banger opening credit sequence, which makes you so excited for this movie. I love opening credit sequences that feature parts of medical reports or parts of criminal reports. That's always a guaranteed crowd pleaser, and always makes it super interesting because you only get like 1/3 of the information, but every piece of information you get is always really cool.
But also that opening scene is like tonally on point. Like it sets you exactly up for that kind of movie, the kind of over the topness, not taking itself maybe as seriously as like Conjuring and some of the other ones. This is much more B-movie-esque, and the first like line of the movie, the rest delivered kind of gives that away, which is very important, I think.
And also kind of dives you into the idea that this is maybe more horror sci-fi than it is pure horror. So we cut to the present. Annabelle Wallis is playing a woman who's pregnant. Her husband smacks her head into the wall. Yeah. Then he is brutally murdered over that night. The killer also attacks her, and she ends up in the hospital. Her unborn baby died in the process. She starts getting interviewed by police officers. They start talking they start suspecting her of being the killer because there's nobody else in the house. The main character, Madison, starts having these visions of characters being killed. Over time, we start to understand that all of the characters being killed in these visions come from the same sort of like hospital working with kids. It's so hard to do the plot of this movie. Then they...
So talking about those visions, though, it's more or less like they're like waking dreams that she's like,
yes,
the way it's filmed, which is very interesting, she's like appearing within these mirrors almost like a voyeur, like she's is happening in front of her.
Absolutely.
But her body and her, by the end we realized, her body is not actually where it is, but the way her mind is being controlled, she thinks she's still like in her bed or something else at that time.
Yeah, there's these cool cuts between like these merging of the space around her, where like they're messing with like the room she's in will melt and become another room. Over time, we start realizing that the main character is actually one of these little girls from the original hospital, that she had some kind of surgery going on to her. They start hunting for a killer that they believe to be Gabriel, who's sort of believed to be the imaginary friend or like childhood friend of her.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like old childhood videos from her adopted family, which we know, of her like speaking to someone named Gabriel, or like saying that Gabriel is telling her to do things, or Gabriel is trying to kill her little old sister.
Yes, and they finally, the Madison's sister goes back to the original hospital, finds some records. They start watching these tapes of the original things, and they realize that Gabriel is actually a teratoma, which is basically a tumorous parasite growing out of her body. Basically,
he's essentially the twin, but a parasitic twin.
Parasitic twin, sharing the same brain and spinal cord as her. In the original hospital, they had realized that over time he was becoming more and more dangerous, so they had tried to basically cut him out and remove him from the body. But because they share the same spinal cord and brain, so this is actually an interesting moment, which sort of ties into like just basic cancer like surgery, which is that the hardest places to cut out tumors are if they start involving brain or spinal cord, because it's not just tissue you can remove. If you have a tumor growing in like muscle tissue or like even less essential tissue, you can sometimes remove that easily. In this scenario, this is like the most extreme version of a tumor. It's one that is almost impossible to remove. They were able to make him go dormant and go inside her skull, but when her husband smashed her head against the wall, Gabriel was sort of reborn. We then get to see Gabriel take over Madison's body, slaughter an entire prison cell and a police station. At this point, Madison is suspected of being the murderer herself by the cops, because of course the cops are unable to realize that Gabriel is actually like taking over her body and using her to do these things, but also leaving her without the memories of the actions happening, so she doesn't remember doing them herself. Truly amazing kill scene. Like, just
which one?
The jail cell.
Like full on action set piece.
The jail cell especially has some just amazing kills. The punch through the body. There's like just some. It is really James Wan going like, I am just going to do the coolest kills with this weird. I also just love the movement patterns. The fact that because the Gabriel's in the back of the head, the person is out walking backwards and then using
so
the arms
body's
from this
just a little awkward and off kilter.
It's really, I think, really well done. And then Gabriel goes after the birth mother we've now researched at this point, and Madison sort of like turned the tables on him, realizes that she can control him just as much as he control her. She can force him deeper, and sort of a little bit of a goofy moment where like Madison tells her sister that they'll always be sisters, and
the whole movie is kind of a goofy moment, so you can't like take that one out.
It's the moment that like it's the one moment in the film that like actually is like trying to be emotional, so it feels a little bit tonally.
It was trying to connect the like dramatic themes that for most of the movie didn't care about, of her like wanting to find family
and
love.
The movie ends.
She pushes him deep inside, and then there's a lot of hints that he will return.
Mm-hmm. I do think Malignant 2 might happen.
Well, yes, we'll see what the HBO numbers are, because this was kind of a bomb in theaters, but that's not really. I think we've talked about this to exhaustion, but I don't know if they're going to be their focus on whether they make another movie or not. So we'll see how successful it is on the streaming site.
I think we had a lot of discussions around this around Suicide Squad, but one thing that became clear relatively, at least as Delta variant started to emerge again, is that people are truly looking at the ability to see it online and choosing to pass in the theaters, which is something that was not occurring in the early stages of this thing back in like April and May. I think people were so desperate to get out and go to a movie theater that they were willing to watch stuff that they could have watched for free. And now I think people are making, because the variables of the situation have changed, are making slightly different choices.
Yeah, I think on surface level, you can look at numbers and be like, there's no way this is a sequel, but I don't think that's deep enough insight too. I think the success that this movie may have, I definitely see this as like kind of having some long legs as building up viewers. I think there is a kind of buzz and talk to it, even if it's sometimes negative buzz. It's so wild that people will talk about it so strongly one way or the other that it hits people's interest.
It's certainly not boring.
It's not boring.
So people are definitely going to be, I think, interested in that respect. Let's talk about James Wan for a second. Well, I mean, we've seen roughly the same amount of James Wan films, haven't we?
I literally don't remember if I've seen Insidious or not. I should look this up. I think I have. I confuse it with Sinister, and I'm pretty sure I've seen Sinister.
Maybe. But I
have not seen Saw.
I have not seen Saw either. So I've seen mostly his Conjuring work, and then this and Aquaman.
I haven't seen Fast 7.
I have. It's Furious 7. But thank you for insulting.
Sure.
I'm going to get downvoted like crazy now. Yeah. James Wan is an interesting director in that he is. I think we built this month. He's a tour.
I have not seen Insidious.
All right. We're good to know. He's an interesting director because we built the month of horror auteurs around him. And I would say he is an auteur. Although if you actually look at his career, the fact that he is almost exclusively, and Malignant might be the only movie in his entire collection that is not part of a franchise or did not become a franchise.
But they're franchises he created as horror franchises.
No, but that's what makes him somewhat interesting, is that a lot of times people work in horror franchises because they make an indie movie and then they jump to horror franchises. This is a dude who's just built horror franchises all along. He built Saw. He built Insidious. He built the Conjuring franchise.
This is his fourth if it creates a sequel. It's a lot for one director to like do first entries on.
Yeah, and he usually does like 1 to 2 of the movies and then stops working on them. Like he did 1 Saw, he did I believe 2 Insidious, and then he did 2 Conjuring, and he's going to do 2 Aquaman. So
I think he's one of the 2 most important figures in horror of the past 20 years. I think him and Blum.
Yeah, no, I think that's very much true. He's also done a really good job making sure that he builds horror franchises that are successful, but he also doesn't get stuck in them. Like if he had gotten stuck doing all 5 Saw movies or all 5 Insidious movies or all the Conjuring movies, I think his career would be looked on much less favorably. But the fact that he's rarely does more than 1 or 2 of them allows him to never get locked purely into that single franchise, letting that define.
But you also know where his heart and ideas truly are, because he goes from becoming a super successful franchise, director with Aquaman and with Fast going into other franchises that he can jump into any franchise he wants and do the biggest, get hundreds of $1 million budgets that if he wants to. And he's like, you know what I really rather do is just like make this weird ass, B movie. So this is where the passion I think comes out more than maybe Aquaman or that. It definitely seems where his heart is.
Well, I think he's passionate with everything, but yeah, I think what he does love is horror, and he likes to make. My last statement on him would be, he makes a lot of different type of horror because Saw and Conjuring and Malignant are not the same type of horror movie, and it's not the same type of genre or the same type of beats.
He still has to like challenge himself. He's not, even though he's playing in this same sandbox, he's adding new toys and new tools to keep it a different challenge.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Malignant. You said you were more split in this. You said you were somewhat split in this.
Yeah. I'm on the positive end because I have to admire all the creativity, especially in the last half hour, and the balls to the wall bonkerness, which I tend to always want from movies. I want to see movies kind of go for it and be crazy. I found the police elements of it like a fucking CSI episode. Like the lines they delivered and the acting quality and the way it was filmed seems so TV-ish. I think my main flaw is James Wan is a horrible acting director. I think the only good performance in James Wan movie is Vera Farmiga, and I think she is the one to give credit because she's not going to be able to, falter anyone's movie. We all know I hate Patrick Wilson, and he is weird as fucking Conjuring does not work. So I think he's the only one. I think there's just something so like plastic about his performance, something so artificial, which in this movie it's kind of supposed to be. There's an artificiality to the kind of genre. It's supposed to be a little, arch or over the top. But those performances I find so boring and so rote, and not to the not to the level. I think Annabelle Wallace honestly is really good, and they're just playing like a completely different game than what she's doing. She's in a whole different movie in the movie I think this is, and they're just giving the most down the line basic performance you can possibly with like zero character and zero charm. And I don't think it's all to blame. I think those characters are also so thinly written. They are written like they're TV detectives with no true, arc or body to them. Those scenes really kind of took me out of it. And I don't know if it was necessary to the movie.
So I wouldn't go as far to say he's that bad with actors. I will agree that those scenes are only in the movie to serve the purpose of having the sort of people suspecting the main character of being the bad person.
But they're essentially, as far as time-wise, they're like this second main characters, and they're disposed of without any real interest. They're just like gone from the movie near the end, and they do not come back. Even though I forget the detective's name, but he is the second lead essentially. There should have just been a lot more care given to those characters drawn out, because there's a lot of seven to this movie, and I'm not the first person to say that. And those detectives, you compare them to like Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and I don't love Seven, but at least those performances and those characters have so much more actual soul to them in their experience, and these are just people doing their jobs.
Yeah, I think it's just they don't care. I mean, you can make this as a like James Wan is very clearly focused on one thing and one thing only, and he's interested in that and not really much else. And the other characters are, I mean, to me, obviously, it reminds me of a lot of horror films. In a lot of horror films, characters are there to serve a plot purpose rather than a character purpose.
Probably why I sometimes have pushed away from horror, because I think if you're going to give characters so much more time, they need more purpose rather than just to push the plot. They still have to be essentially characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would fall sort of in the in between of this, and that I don't think the performances are particularly great, and I'm not going to sit here and remember them in a while. I was not turned off by them the way you were. It was sort of just like I was along for the ride with the movie, and if they're part of the story that I have to watch, I'm not going to complain.
I would give the same thing. I was giving all to them, but the sister, same argument I would say for her as well.
Yeah,
they give her a lot. They give her a lot to do, but there's no true soul to what that character is. Her personality is she's like an earnest actress in the dumbest way possible, and that's like all I got.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't really have. I mean, like, I think the thing that is very evident in this movie is that there are just you don't know any of these people. These actors are not outside of. I mean, even Annabelle Wallace is not like if Annabelle Wallace is the most like. How many people in this cast have you even seen in something before? I think I've seen 2 of these people.
Nothing, maybe.
I think I've seen 2 of these actors.
Movie. I've seen Gabriel in many things, mostly in the shadows. If you look deep at the ends of like Forrest Gump, you can see Gabriel hiding around.
It's a good point.
I'm going to say this, and you're going to hate me so much, but this is my true feelings. That's going to turn off all our audience and ruin any credibility I have. Do you know what I want this movie more so to be?
Go ahead.
Is Woman in the Window. I want those actors. I think Annabelle Wallace says I want the actors just going balls to the walls crazy as all the performances in Woman in the Window I think are going for it.
So I understand
those are stars and they're playing in a different level than what they have. But I mean, even these amateurs seem like they're still playing it so safe. And they're so not amateurs. That's really fucking rude of me. But they're still playing it so safe. And down the line, I want them just to go for something wacky because that's what this movie is. The plot wise and the last half hour is all really wacky over the top. And I just think there's so many scenes playing against that and not embracing that. And the performances are not embracing that. And Annabelle Wallace is embracing it. And that's why I think she thrives within this.
So I will say this movie much better than Woman in the Window. Like that's not even, they're not remotely close.
I honestly disagree.
They're not even remotely close. No, Woman in the Window is straight garbage. But I see your point in that there is an argument to be made that these characters. I think two things are really clear. One, a lot of these people are TV actors. I feel like TV lends itself to big, showy, hammy performances less than film does, mostly because it's so much about just getting the shot, moving on to the next thing. But I would agree. I think some more camp would be fun.
James Wan's dramatic arcs seem TV-ish. I don't think he's able to carry characters like that.
See, I think it works when you have better actors, when you have more established actors. Like I don't have the problem with The Conjuring or Aquaman or something. But this movie is a movie that
I do with Aquaman.
Aquaman's amazing. Please do not start fighting in this again. But yeah, this is a movie where your biggest actor is Annabelle Wallace, and I'm not saying this is insulting. She's good. She's a good actress, but she's not like super high tier or particularly impressive. Or like she's a good actress, but she's not top of the line film.
She's like a fine in other movies and things. I think she's really great in this because she's finally given a chance to like do something. It is like really intense and take the screen. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's see. Anything else specifically that you found off-putting?
I think I kind of resolved this one in my head, but I feel like there's just a little too many like clues. They made a lot of the connections to her and Gabriel a little obvious. I don't think they had the big twist, which is they were still part of the same body. I still found pretty shocking, but you're led pretty early on that they are essentially siblings and connected. And I kind of wish the movie would have laid in that mystery. I think it would have made the surprise at the end more exciting because it's not a far line between where my mind was already going and with him being part of her, that it wasn't as shocking to me as it seems like it is for other audiences because I already was training my brain to think that there was that connection. I just still thought that he because they said take the tumor out, that he was like a different being at this point coming back, but that their minds were still connected somehow. So that she was still part of it, still a twist, but I wish I kind of was assuming that she had less to direct connection to him than they tell you right away.
Yeah, I mean, just the first scene to the cut ahead to the present day, it's pretty clear that they're going from young version of this character to the older version of this character. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those twists where it's like they could have done a better job about it, but I also think that it's very effective.
I don't think it's trying to be as much of a twist as that. So maybe I'm doing the kind of argument that I hate, which is complaining about the movie I want rather than the movie.
Yeah,
I do think that there's just more of a mystery than it would have well done.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I hadn't thought about this. Everybody keeps talking about this as is it a twist? It's there is a legitimate argument to make that this is not meant to be a twist. That James Wan never for 1 minute tells you that there's not a connection between these two characters.
The reveal was a shock.
It's a body horror, but it's in some ways it's more of a body horror reveal than it is like a, oh my god, this thing you never would have guessed in the like would have that if you'd asked somebody 10 minutes into the movie, if told them the final result and asked them how surprising it was, it wouldn't have been that surprising, if we're being honest. That's not, that's not like Shutter
called
Island.
Malignant. They give it away in the title. It is a tumor or a parasite of some sort connected. It's in the title.
Yeah, they're certainly not hiding it. This is not like Shutter Island or something where like that twist is actually makes you kind of reevaluate the entire film and everything that has previously happened in it.
Shutter Island's ruined. That was on an island all along.
I know. And it has shutters, really just killing the decorations.
Not enough shutters, honestly. More shutters needed. Let's have a proper title that fits it.
Anything else that was holding you up on this?
No, I think that I those are my big problems with it. I'm still veering to the positive, as I said. Yeah. That's what hold me back from being as excited as some of its like biggest fans to be, and making me really want to rewatch it.
See, I'm not a big.
It makes me honestly, those aspects make me kind of bored. And then the last half hour it's very fun, but there I feel like I could be watching, something a little more exciting.
I would say I am not as high on it as maybe the biggest fans of Malignant are.
Yeah,
I do think there are moments that suffer that are not as interesting as others. I think the biggest criticism, the biggest statement you can make about this movie, and you can sort of treat this as a criticism or a compliment, depending on how you want to think of it, is that James Wan is very focused on like a really small, about 15% chunk of this movie.
And the last 25 minutes is what the
it's not even just the last 25 minutes. It's that opening sequence. It's these little things about Gabriel and the parasite, and that's the part that he really cares about. This parasitic twin thing. That's the thing he really cares about. And he's focused on throughout the film. And the other moments are all, and this sort of like, it's very classic horror in some respects. The other moments are just to get them from point A to point B.
Yeah, he can't build the world with a lot of depth around his essential idea.
Yeah, because he clearly doesn't, he's not as interested in, the cops are just there to serve a purpose. The sister's there to serve a purpose. You initially think the tour guide in like the underground is like basically has no purpose until you realize she does, with only like 20 minutes left in the film.
I think in Conjuring, though, he does build the world so deeply. It's such a different movie in a lot of ways.
Well, I think Conjuring
kind of violates all my complaints about James Wan. I think Conjuring does not fall for it.
Conjuring is so focused on, well, Conjuring has two things. Conjuring has a pre-existing world that it can enter into, and then it just has to build out these characters. But the entire, I think they also knew going into Conjuring 1 that they wanted to set up multiple films about the Warrens and their exploits. Malignant feels like they're way more focused on like they can just sort of take this one concept and that can be 25% of the film, and they can build the lean-to around it, so they can get from point A to point B going forward. And if they wanted to do a second and third one, they have Gabriel, they have the parasitic twin, and they're kind of like they're happy with those components. And if they have to do the other stuff around it, they'll just figure it out.
I've never seen Saw, so this comparison could be nothing. But my idea is the same thing with Saw, that he's all built around this concept that he has. He doesn't really care about the characters and backstories that he's placing into it.
From my understanding, Saw is about basically, it's sort of like torture porn. It's just like, what are the different ways I can kill people? That seems more of Saw's focus. I like Malignant, I think, more than you. But I'm also
Let's talk about the things we like.
When it's working, it's awesome. Like when you finally get the reveals, like the opening sequence, the credits, the final reveals, the attacks. I think that stuff is awesome.
Set pieces are really well executed, well filmed, well choreographed, like phenomenally choreographed, or effects. I don't know how they did the backwards motions and everything.
It's not surprising that James Wan could go make a giant, big budget superhero movie because he's always had excellent choreography in his action sequences in horror films.
And the editing is also really sharp in this movie for those scenes, because I think it's very key to creating that kind of reality of her having those, I don't know, the dreams or that visions essentially. The editing is really good at keeping the viewer kind of aware of where everyone is at all times, and
visually, it's a super cool movie. I love when they're doing the visions and the background is melting from her house into the person's house she's watching getting killed. There's a lot of cool stuff. He's always had a good visual style. He always has interesting visual movies, and Malignant is certainly another one in that line.
Yep. Even the designs, like the character design, Gabriel was the body horror elements are fucking creepy, and it's like a destroyed, kind of melting face essentially coming out of the body with just like the wiry black hair that you can never trust on anybody, which is on Annabelle Wallace's hair, but going forward. So even the shape of it as like backwards hair, but looking forward, just creates this kind of unreal spooky effect. That's just a brilliant visual idea, as well.
Just even the sequences of like the original Parasite and then cutting him back and doing the surgery to remove him and then forcing him into the skull and locking him in. Those sequences are really cool. And clearly they did like a lot of time thinking through them. Fun fact.
How much do you think that they stole visually from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone? It's essentially
I had exactly that said. I was like, this looks exactly like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone from some of those moments. But also I feel like any kind of back of the head thing would just like inherently look like that.
You say any kind of back of the head thing, like this is a common trope in movies that they put other humans on the back of us.
It's certainly not, but I think at this point, because of just the purveyance of Harry Potter through culture, like any movie that did this at this point would just be compared instantly to that. Playing our favorite game, which is of course Lucas and Zack don't know who celebrities are in relationships with. Do you know who Annabelle Wallace is? Do you know who Annabelle Wallace's partner is?
I do know this. Shit. I want to say Bradley Cooper, but that's not it. Shit, it's gonna drive me crazy because I 100% know who it is because they did some weird, like some Imagine-esque kind of video together.
It's Chris Pine.
I was about to say, yeah, Chris Pine. Okay.
Also, I did not know this. Annabelle Wallace's uncle is the late Richard Harris.
I didn't know that.
And her cousin is the actor.
Did you know these people were related? Game.
And her cousin is the actor Jared Harris. So
I didn't know that he was related to them. Jared Harris.
I didn't actually relate Jared and Richard Harris related to them.
Jared Harris should be in this movie. Who would he have played?
Why is he not the cop?
No, he would have had to been one of the like doctors.
He could have been one of the doctors. You're right.
Yeah. Should he have just played Gabriel? Shouldn't he just like planted himself on his cousin's head?
Yeah, why not? I'm always a fan of Jared Harris.
You could have done the voice of Gabriel. Honestly, that Jared Harris has a great voice. And
he does have an amazing voice.
A little creepiness, it would have been perfect. In a different way. It's very different to what this movie was doing with the character's voice, but I think it would have worked.
Do you have any other thoughts on Malignant? I feel like this is a hard movie to talk about because it's so much like the experience of watching it. And it's not like one of these. This is like the worst. This is a rough movie for us to review because we so often get stuck in like the minutia of relationships and stuff and the discussion of that. And this is a movie that is almost purely about just like sitting back and like immersing yourself in the
visceral effects of some of the scenes. I say you got to just be patient because when it works, it does really work. It is very visceral. It is very exciting. You just kind of go through the plot mechanics to get there.
I will say one thing I was a little surprised by was James Wan in the Conjuring movies especially is really good at jump scares and like just scares in general.
This movie's not going for that.
This movie is not scary.
That's why I want to talk about the fucking trailer. But go on.
No, it's just like it's one of these things that like I don't think this dings a horror. If a horror movie doesn't like make me piss myself, I don't think that's like a negative against the film, and I think that's silly to like get mad at a film for not scaring you. But this movie is not going for the typical James Wan horror. So I would say that like if you come into this movie expecting this to do Conjuring scares, you're going to be disappointed. But like you also shouldn't be expecting that because the movie is clearly telling you from the beginning, this is not the Conjuring movies. Please stop treating us like the Conjuring movies.
Yeah.
Trailer.
Yeah, so because of this, what I'm saying, the trailers, I've talked to you, and maybe you've talked on camera about how one of my biggest like pet peeves, I guess, or problems with Hollywood studio systems, horror trailers. Horror trailers
are bad.
The worst thing coming out of Hollywood, essentially, because they're all very samey. They're all catering to a very specific audience and are very often misleading to what the movie is, / not telling you anything about the movie is, because they make them all seem like there's something else. They're created by the studio formula of how can we just make something seem scary, because that's what's going to draw people. Not just what the story is or what this thing is doing creatively, but are you going to like jump and be scared? And trailers are just a bunch of like big, streaking sounds with a glaring image, and then it's followed by 10 seconds later another one, maybe 5 seconds of some idea of a plot, and then just another sharp image. In this movie, watching a trailer, I told you before, it's like, I think this could be real bad, because it just seems like the most rote regular horror movie that's just going to give me jump scares. And it's like not at all what this movie is. It does not sell the kind of ingenuity or the creativity of this movie at all. It makes it seem like every other horror movie that's came out for the past 40 years, because that's what horror trailers do. And it's very, very, I think, upsetting to me, because I think it treats the audiences like they're dumb, and maybe doesn't get the audience that it really needs and deserves, because people are going to be so tuned out by this.
Yeah, trailers for horror movies are rough.
They're loud. They're so horribly loud and make it so uncomfortable to watch. It's not ever fun experiences. I said Us. The Us trailer I found disastrous, because it was following the same kind of.
Comedies are the easiest movies to do trailers for. Horror is the hardest.
I think they think it's easy, but they don't care.
Well, I think
it's such a formula to what they do with it.
Well, it's also, to be fair, in their defense, it's really tough if your movie is not classic studio horror. If your movie is jump scares, a couple kills, like that stuff will work in a trailer. But
that's what they make every horror movie seem like.
I know, but that might be just because that on the whole usually sells more than the other ones. I think this is just kind of a problem with we have a society
treating your audience like they're not more interesting.
But I don't think the audience is more interesting. I think we actually have a culture where the audience is like, they're easy to predict what they're going to respond to. And I think that's why we get horror trailers like we do. Like, if you make a jump scare horror movie, it can be terrible and it'll make money. If you make a horror movie that is more complicated or asks more of its audience, that movie will make significantly less money. I think
you can sell a movie on atmosphere and just pure creepiness, and just you don't want to give away, like, you could have done the look at the Gabriel thing of just like him like looking like Edward Scissorhands staring down, and create that kind of just creepy vibe without having to do it by over the top sharp editing.
Yeah, I just think it's harder sometimes when stuff doesn't fit the mainstream mold of what tends to succeed. That just makes it hard.
And they should just use some of the score instead of just loud shrieking noises. Just use I told you I think it was just ripping off the Pixies, but I think it is the Pixies. Something else said that it was just like a remix of Where Is My Mind? They're just like playing as their main score drop. I think it's like, it might literally be that, but it does sound like Where's My Mind throughout the whole movie.
Do you like the Pixies sound drop? Is that good?
I think it's good because that song rules and that sound is really good, and it does work as far as atmospheric, but it also doesn't work because that song is so noticeable and so tied to Fight Club that it's like one of the songs you can't use again without it distracting you.
That was my take on it, is that it's just like, it might be a good song, but I'm sorry, I'm like, when are the buildings going to fall down every time they play it?
There's certain songs that are just so tied to a specific movie and a certain vision that it creates in someone's mind that you can't recreate again. You can't top it.
Yeah, you just can't. I think it was kind of a mistake doing that, if we're being honest, but not like, I'm not going to massively ding them. Any more thoughts on?
What if James Wan has never seen Fight Club? So he didn't know it happened. Do you think there's a
that would be hilarious?
Hasn't seen Fight Club?
No,
because this movie has a lot of inspiration of Seven. So
he's definitely seen David Fincher movies. Yeah. Any more thoughts on Malignant?
No, it was a fun experience.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm happy we did the month on it, and it's what I went. Well, like, we wanted to focus on James Wan because he is someone with a creative streak that he's bringing to horror movies. He is very important, and this movie, I think, continues to show why he is still an important filmmaker, even if he's not one of my guys.
I feel like I don't know if there are many of your guys in the horror genre.
In the horror genre, no,
it's not really.
Maybe
not
Jordan
really
Peele. I love both those movies.
Yeah, Jordan Peele, not the best director we're covering this month. Just heads up.
He is.
He's not, but I'll explain later.
Who Hereditary's but not great. Okay, go.
Wow. Bad takes from Zach. Per usual, not to be expected. All right, we did Malignant. I hope you enjoyed this. Please watch Malignant. It's on HBO Max, and also theaters if you want to do that. I feel like this would be a great theater experience if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, probably really fun.
Yes.
Too bad we'll never know because we don't leave our houses.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I love the HBO Max thing, but yeah, it also means that I see no reason to go to the theaters for stuff I can access from. Which is clearly what many people in the audience
I can't watch this at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning at a theater like I did.
Or I can't watch it in 2 parts like I needed to. All right, Malignant. Enjoy the rest of the month. Enjoy everything. We will have more regularly scheduled content. Like, subscribe, do other things on YouTube, follow Spotify, Apple, whatever the hell. We're on basically everywhere. If you find out we're not on your platform of choice, email us. The email's in the show description, and I will try to get it on there.
And if you want a private show, join our Patreon at the $5,000
$2 billion
level.
$2 billion.
$2 billion. You got to pay the plane tickets too. Additional to your Patreon charge, you have to buy our plane tickets and board.
Plane tickets and all expenses. And Zach and I live a very, very expensive lifestyle.
Yeah, we're getting steaks for every meal and snack, baby.
3 or 4, maybe. We won't even eat it. We'll just order them. All right. Regularly scheduled programming resuming. Enjoy the review. Have a good night. Peace out, folks.